So after over a decade, I have quit being dairy free. I strictly avoided dairy for a really long time to help my gut and sort out all my gut issues. But now that I've healed my gut, it's not necessary. So in this video, I'm going to share with you how I managed to get rid of annoying food intolerances, because you can. So when I was 17, I stopped eating dairy. I had so many gut issues, health issues, bowel embarrassments, skin issues. And somebody, I think it might have even been a doctor, said, try being dairy free. And it did definitely help. Did it solve all the problems in my life? No, definitely not. But it was a really useful step. But now, many years later, I eat dairy. So I have quit being dairy free. I'm a holistic nutritionist. I work with people all the time around gut issues and hormone issues, and I think the fact that I eat dairy is often a bit of a surprise. So in this video, I want to share with you how I got to the point where I could heal my gut and reintroduce dairy, of which I was intolerant to. I wasn't allergic, but I did have a food intolerance to dairy. How did I get my gut to the point of being able to reintroduce dairy? Because let's be honest, cheese is really nice, right? So if you're not familiar with my story, I will give a very quick rundown. Since being a child, I had a lot of gut issues, stomach issues, diagnosed with IBS by the time I was about 15, 17. Had a lot of bowel issues, lots of bloating that then turned into joint issues, hormone problems, chronic fatigue, parasites, just like the whole gamut. I'm now, as a 37-year-old woman, a holistic nutritionist and coach, and have been for the last 10 years. But way back, the reason that I got interested in food and the power of food and using food as medicine, because I just wanted to feel less awful, and I could not imagine living the rest of my life feeling as crap as I felt growing up. I was like, surely going to the toilet should not be this embarrassing, painful, awful. Surely I shouldn't look pregnant when I am not pregnant and have to adjust trousers and my trousers don't fit. So I want to share with you some of the nuance, and I know that's not very popular on the internet, but I want to share with you why going dairy free for me was really the right decision back then, and how it's not now. So I'm not here to say that nobody should be dairy free. It's a total waste of time. No, I've worked with a lot of people, a lot of clients over the last 10 years, and going dairy free has definitely been a part of them feeling a lot better. And there's some research, there's a lot of clinical evidence and anecdotal evidence around that. But I'm also here to say that I do eat dairy now, and I don't think it's this blanket rule that everybody needs to be dairy free and that dairy is the reason everything's going awful. Dairy is the classic thing nutritionists are in a conundrum about, because it's a whole food. It's not very processed. It's really nutrient dense. It's got protein, it's got fats, it's got calcium, it's got so much good stuff in it. Yet I do find with my clients and with myself that it can make things worse. So when I stopped dairy, I actually really noticed a difference in terms of all my bloating and my gut issues, and especially my bowel issues. And so I was dairy free quite strictly for a good number of years. And then more recently, so say in the last 5 years, especially when I started having kids, that was when I really started to reintroduce dairy. And over time have found that I can actually tolerate it pretty well. And now I eat dairy most days. Now, to give a full status update of what I eat is I have mainly cow's milk. So I don't really, not cow's milk, goat milk. I drink goat milk most days. But if I'm out at a coffee shop, obviously they don't offer goat milk because it's still a bit weird. I'll have cow's milk and that's fine. I eat goat's cheese, but I also eat normal cheese, and I eat normal yogurt, cow yogurt. And if I'm going out anywhere for coffee, I'd always get cow's milk rather than the ultra processed oat milk. Although sometimes I get soy milk, because to be honest, I drank soy milk for years because I was dairy free before it was a thing. The only dairy free milk option was soy milk. So I've drank that for years. I actually quite like soy milk. I'm a fan. You might disagree. That's okay. But generally speaking, there is so much more resiliency now in my gut. And I've noticed that actually I've really benefited from having more of that nutrient density from the milk itself. Oh, I didn't quite realize, oh my gosh, that getting to said field, it's basically a total We did it. So let's just first check there's no dog walkers, because I always feel like a total idiot talking into my phone in front of people. So what's the deal? Why would I even remove dairy in the first place? Well, there's a lot that can be said about this. First of all, there's the dairy industry and the quality of the dairy products that we're getting and the processing that can take place. But also it's really about, from my perspective as a holistic nutritionist, is how is it affecting somebody's gut and how well are they digesting it? Some people genetically aren't able to make the lactase enzyme to break down lactose, but it's not just about lactose. So I'll sometimes get clients saying, well, why don't I just buy lactose-free milk? A lot of the time when I'm working with people with gut issues, hormone issues, skin issues, lots of congestion, sinus issues, all of these kind of things, I'm not just thinking about, are they reacting to lactose or can they genetically produce this enzyme to break it down? I'm also thinking about casein, which is a protein in milk. So it's not just about being lactose free, it's really about your ability to digest milk in general. And I think in my case, and in a lot of the time with the clients I work with, for me, I had so much gut health inflammation and dysbiosis and issues going on that dairy was just making it worse. I ran genetics, and according to my genetics, I do create lactase, but because my gut health was such a mess, I was really struggling to digest it. And that's the primary thing, to be honest, with all food, is how well are you digesting it and how healthy is your gut microbiome. My gut microbiome was not very healthy. And to just do a really quick summary, the reason I can quit being dairy free is that because I've improved my gut microbiome. So it's worth pointing out, I never had a dairy allergy. So if you have a dairy allergy, it's very, very unlikely that that's just suddenly going to go away. I had a dairy intolerance that actually I see in a lot of my siblings and in my family. The reason that I've been able to now reintroduce dairy is because of the work I did on my gut microbiome. It's not because that necessarily suddenly went away, but what I did was, instead of putting dairy onto this really inflamed and irritated part of my body, which was my gut health, I'm not doing a good job of walking and talking, I've just stopped. I actually got to the root of the issue. And the root of the issue for me wasn't a dairy intolerance. It was something contributing to symptoms, but that wasn't the root issue. The root issue for me was there was bacteria overgrowth, yeast overgrowth, there was parasites, I had poor immune function in my gut, I had a lot of histamine reaction. There was a lot of stuff going on in my gut that meant adding dairy to the mix wasn't helpful for me. And so for many years, I didn't have it. And so what I've done, and what I've helped a lot of clients do, is actually really figure out what's my unique root cause and what's going on with my gut. So I ran gut tests, and I've run lots of gut tests over the years on myself, where you test your stool sample and you look at inflammatory markers and bacterial abundance and all of these kind of things. And then you get to work on changing that. Because the amazing thing about the gut microbiome is that it's really adaptable and that it can change. It's an ecosystem. Just like in a garden, if you start to plant the right seeds, you get the right kind of flowers. It's the same in your gut. If you treat it right, you can start to create a really flourishing and healthy environment. And that makes a huge difference. Gosh, I'm out of breath. I've not even walked uphill. So the biggest mistakes I see people making when it comes to being dairy-free is, number one, and this is with gut health actually issues in general, I would say, is people focus more on restriction and restricting food than they do on building resilience. Now, I do think, I've worked with hundreds of people, I do think there's just certain foods that people just don't get on with, and it's a lifelong thing. Like, although I have goat's milk every day, I don't think I would be great having cow cream and cow milk every day of my life in a milk form. I really don't think that would do me any good. And I think that's probably the way for the rest of my life. And I do think that's true, but so often, especially with gut issues and in this food space and wellness and nutrition, is people just are a bit obsessed with restricting foods. Just the answer, restrict more foods, instead of focusing on, okay, what's the real root cause and how can I build resiliency in my gut so that I can go and have a cheese board or I can go and eat pizza. And the only way you create resiliency and can actually start to reduce the amount of food intolerances that you have, the way you reduce that is by shifting your gut microbiome and creating more of that resilience. The other mistake people make all the time and this is not a very popular mistake, but I've seen it to be true in my own life, and I've seen it to be true in countless clients' lives, is that the nutrient depletions that can potentially take place when you ditch dairy. So for me, even though I was having a really whole food, healthy diet, I was low in calcium. And when I started to introduce calcium, when I got pregnant with my first child, I really craved more dairy-like products. And it was actually in between, in that sort of postpartum time after having my first child, that I started to experiment more with adding goat's milk and goat's things in. And actually when I introduced and increased my calcium intake, my sleep improved, just a lot of things improved in my life. So I think, and I've worked with a lot of clients that are vegetarians or very plant-based, and they don't realize how much food of the alternative foods, of which there are. You know, you can have sardines with the bones in, that's a good source of calcium. There's things like tahini, there's things like tofu. So I'm not saying you can't get calcium without dairy, but it is harder to do. And most of the time, if you are dairy free, you aren't getting the calcium levels in. And again, it's not the kind of thing that I just then think, go and start calcium supplementation. That's also not necessarily the answer. So for me, being dairy free, whilst it did really help my gut, I wasn't meeting the nutrient needs that I had. And that's really important, especially as I'm having children, or was having children, no more children happening here, but getting into my 30s, thinking about bone health and setting myself up for success as I get into my 60s, 70s, 80s, hopefully 90s. It was really important. So it's really worth noting, being dairy-free can be helpful, but I rarely see it done with people where there isn't nutrient depletions. It can be done, of course. Dairy is not the only food containing calcium, but it requires a lot more intention. And unless you're eating like tofu in good amounts on a daily basis, a lot of the time you're not going to be getting the calcium requirements that you need. So was being dairy-free a complete waste of time for me? No, absolutely not. And I have definitely recommended to clients to try or experiment with going dairy-free, especially when there is skin issues, eczema, psoriasis, when there is congestion, sinus issues, when there's long-term gut issues or bowel problems. It's 100% something that can be worth trying out and experimenting with and seeing if you feel better. But remember, the goal whenever you're doing work with your gut health, with your hormones, or changing habits around food, the goal isn't just to create constant restriction and limitations on your life. The goal is to create resiliency. So if you are removing gluten or dairy or whatever the food is and you feel better, that's great. That's obviously helping you facilitate a more healing environment, helping you facilitate and make space for, let's focus on the gut microbiome, for your gut to heal and repair. But just know that might not be needed forever, especially depending on your unique root causes. A lot of the time, there might be seasons of eating where you remove gluten or where you remove dairy, and then seasons where you bring it back in. And for some people, those seasons can last for a good number of years, because healing, especially chronic long-term things, can take time. But just know the goal is not that you constantly, if you're managing all your symptoms by just making sure you're low FODMAP and no dairy and no corn and no this and no gluten, and your list of foods that you can't eat is getting smaller and more restricted, that is not your gut healing. That's just you managing your symptoms, and you're not creating resiliency. And the reason you're not creating resiliency is you've probably not uncovered your unique root cause. That's what I do with all my clients, is that we're really figuring out what is your unique root cause, and therefore any food changes that we make are some of these long-term. Maybe we do uncover really quite severe food intolerances, or maybe there's short-term things that we need to do to just facilitate this shift in your gut microbiome or this shift in the ecosystem. And that's what being dairy-free really did for me. But also I'm really glad that I've reintroduced it back in. I really love eating cheese and ordering a cheese plate and going for a coffee. I got sick of oat milk. I can't bear oat milk. It's also really processed, really high in sugar. I'm really glad I did it. And I'm really also glad that I'm no longer dairy-free, so I can have all the cheese and all the milk. And again, there's still some adjustments I make in my life, like goat's milk definitely makes me feel better. And I don't drink cow's milk every day, but there will be butter, there is cow's yogurt, and there's just a lot more freedom. And that is the goal with any gut work that you're trying to do, is not to create more restriction, it's to create more freedom so that you can go and live your best badass life. So if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Let me know I'd love to know if you are dairy free or not. Everybody's a bit of a mix, and obviously you do you. The most important thing is that you eat in a way that makes your body feel amazing and that targets your unique root cause. So thank you for joining me, and I will see you next week.